a little bit about where you grew up?
Growing up in my extremely white environment, often I felt like I was not seen as an individual, and especially because I was strong at math, and so I very much did feel like I fit all these stereotypes. And yeah, I think it really affected me in a romantic sense because I was bullied for the way I looked. I just felt extremely ugly going to that school because all the girls who were coveted in that school like had, features that are more appreciated in this society, I guess. So like really light eyes and blonde hair. I really did want to look as white as possible. And it's just sad because I guess across the board it's just like Western features being uplifted, and I really had that internalized racism within me for sure.
I know you have a sister. Have you talked to her about?
Yeah, I have. Like, my sister had a boyfriend who, after they had been separated, she heard that he had said things like, oh, she's so submissive, like Asian this. Like, literally, like, all the stereotypes on Asian women. He had talked about her like that behind her back. And so I was so angry to hear this, and also he's white, and so I've been kind of pushing my sister in the camp like maybe it's better to date someone who's a person of color, so maybe they're less likely to say those types of ignorant things to you and treat you with more respect. Um, but obviously, she can make her own decisions, and I shouldn't generalize like a whole population. But yeah, I just don't want her to be hurt like that again.
Do you hold yourself to the same standards as her?
Yeah, well, I for sure have strayed from being with white men just because I think hearing the ways that the boys in my middle school like talked just made me really scared. I think oftentimes people think like it's like snowflake to like react to these small things, but I think these comments like really add up and like can result in like eating disorders or like self-harm or like severe body dysmorphia. And so like yeah, just like one joke is one joke, but layered atop one another, it can result in like real violence and harm.
Can you talk a little bit about your dating experience after college?
I remember like one summer, I was talking to this dude. He would always talk about how the other people he liked were like Asian, or like he showed me his previous crushes. They were all Asian, and he's like, my type is Asian. And like, he also really liked anime, and I was really confused whether he liked me for me or just because like I fit this very demographic that he was into. Um, and I never asked him, and I wish I kind of was like, and I get it, right? Like, everyone has their preferences, but I feel like when it's racial, it's kind of hard to put into words why it feels so weird to date someone who's only dated Asian people. But yeah, it feels slimy. I've been very jaded about dating apps. Even when being with like people I don't really know well, it's always in the back of my head like, do they expect me to be submissive and like docile and all of these Asian stereotypes? Because I've been treated that way, where people do things to you without asking consent, like treating your body extremely disrespectfully, and just like feeling extremely violated. And like, I don't know how much that has to do with like gender or also just the stereotypes that Asian women face being submissive. It has happened so many times where it's like, oh yeah, like Asians are like my type, and before I wouldn't really think anything of it because I was kind of ignorant. I was like, okay, like I guess I had such low self-confidence that I was like, oh, at least they like me, at least they're attracted to me. Like that was the baseline. It was so horrible. I held myself to such a low standard. I remember one time this dude who I was texting made so many Asian jokes, like even like mentioned the things like, oh, are you submissive, like, oh, like blah blah blah, like, oh, Asian are so hot, blah blah. And I was like, okay, I like had an awakening. I was like, this cannot be okay. So I texted him an article. The title of the article was, I give up on trying to explain why the fetishization of Asian women is bad. And he said, it's not that serious. I just think most Asian girls are hot. I have a type. So I stopped talking to him because like at some point, I don't know why I entertained these people. Fetishization is a big part of it, but like white and Asian women are swiped on the most, and like black women and Asian men are swiped on the least. So there's for sure like privilege in a sense in even like getting attention. So like I don't want to make it seem like, you know, it's the hardest life out here. It's just the way I see those questions like translate into how I've been treated, like my body being disrespected. That's what makes me exasperated when I hear these questions, because now I associate it with that physical outcome. Something when I'm dating, like I always think, like the first thing I try to find out is like whether the person has dated a bunch of Asian people before. And like it's always in the back of my mind. And I feel like I'm hyper aware of whether they say anything about my race, just because there's been a lot of negative consequences. So yeah, I'd like to get to a place where I don't feel the need to like question whether they just like me because of my ethnicity.
Do you think your view has been influenced by your parents on like dating or like romantic relationships, and do they differ?
Mm-hmm. They for sure expect me to be with a man and have kids. And like because I'm like pansexual, I feel like that'll just end up happening because that's the road of least resistance. They want to have grandchildren, and I feel like, ugh, I don't want to get pregnant, but like these are the things like maybe one has to do for the family, and maybe my opinion will change with time. But yeah, for sure, the expectations they have, I think are very common among parents, but not really what I want for myself right now. I guess like something I've noticed is outside of the Asian community, when I look at like other friends of color, I just sometimes notice like at a place like MIT, these friends I have, they're beautiful, amazing, smart people, but some of them simply have never been approached. And I think so much of that has to do with colorism. Like I really see, yeah, just my dark-skinned female friends like not as much getting the attention as like my white friends get, or myself. And like, yeah, it's just really disturbing. But I guess we live in a very colorist, racist society, so it's not that surprising. But it's just sad to see this permeate in like all realms of life, even to romance, like especially emphasized in romance. Like it's terrible, we all have some flavor of these negative experiences, but without the other people there to like share and commiserate with me, I think I would have thought there was something like so incredibly ugly and wrong and disturbing about myself, and like what do I need to fix. And like to hear, I mean, it's horrible that like my beautiful amazing friends have had to experience similar things, but it makes me realize it's like everyone's kind of under this system that hurts them, and it's not really because you're doing anything wrong, but it's just the way society has been structured.